All right, let's explore even more autistic history and the Autism Wars. This is part 121 of a series. Picking back up an article that was written in 1965 titled Screams, Slaps, and Love that ran in Life magazine. I shared the first part of this in the earlier video, and I'm going to pick back up where I left off. And again, content warning. Of course, content warning is applied to all of autistic history because it is really harsh. But this is especially difficult because we are speaking about Ivar Lovaas and his research with autistic children that included a shock room and electrifying the floors on these children's bare feet to teach them. Yeah, I guess. All right, so this section I'm going to share next is titled The Rewards, Food, and Affection. Even more than punishment, patience and tenderness are lavished on the children by the staff. Every hour of lesson time has a 10-minute break for affectionate play. The key to the program is a painstaking system of rewarding the children first with food and later with approval whenever they do something correctly. These four were picked because they are avid eaters to whom food is very important. In the first months, they got no regular meals. Spoonfuls of food were doled out only for right answers. A case in point was teaching Billy to talk. First, he had to learn how to mimic the sounds of speech. He started by learning to blow out a match with a sound like whoo. Every who was rewarded with food. Next, he was encouraged to babble these sounds aimlessly. From time to time, he would accidentally form a word. Each word got its reward. So he would repeat the accident, and after weeks, had a vocabulary of words like ball, milk, mama, me. Then they tried to teach meaning. When a ball was held up, Billy would just as likely say milk. This went on for frustrating weeks. In the 6th week, the staff realized Billy was smarter than they had thought. When he gave the wrong word, the researcher would prompt him with the right word. When he echoed it, he was fed. Changing the method, the researcher held up a ball, and Billy said me, and he got nothing. He fidgeted. He desperately began going through the whole vocabulary. When he hit ball, he was fed. In an hour, Billy had caught on and could find the right word immediately. Today, he can ask for any food by name, ask to go out, to go to the bathroom. In short, Billy can talk. All it took was ingenuity and some 90,000 trials. This next section is titled Chuck's Big Breakthrough, a simple, friendly hug. Chuck's mother watched her son and her excitement grew. After 6 weeks, Chuck was beginning to behave like a normal 7-year-old. He had learned to show affection and for the first time talked in simple phrases. The two other boys had also progressed remarkably. Ricky appeared before a UCLA seminar and told them, I am 4 feet 3 inches tall. I'm wearing black and white tennis shoes. Billy may go to a special school next year. Pamela, the oldest, can read now, but left alone still reverts to her bizarre autistic ways. One of the leading authorities on autism has called the UCLA project a tremendous accomplishment. There are not yet plans for a clinic to offer general treatment, but Lovaas hopes he has found a way to help any child with a broken mind more quickly and simply than with methods now used. And this section is titled The Nightmare of Life with Billy. It states here, when his father's car pulled out of the driveway, I'd bolt the doors, lock the windows, and the nightmare would begin. Thus, Billy's mother, Pat, describes a terrifying existence in which she was at the mercy of a small boy so cunning and so violent that he almost propelled her into a nervous breakdown. Pat's story is significant in 2 respects. First, it indicates that it is virtually impossible for an intelligent, well-intentioned parent to cope with an autistic youngster. Second, it shows why Pat and her husband, along with the parents of the other children, so eagerly embraced Lovaas' program, even though it involved shock and other forms of punishment. The causes of autism are no clearer with Billy than with the other children. He had suffered a traumatic birth, one that places great strain on the infant. Pat was 17 hours in labor, and when the doctors had finally delivered him by cesarean section, it was 90 seconds before he breathed, another 90 before he cried. Nor was his early environment always pleasant. His parents' marriage was going through a difficult period. His father, a doctor, was serving his internship. Every other night he was at the hospital, and when he came home, he had no energy left to do anything but fall into bed. Later, called into the Navy, he was separated from Billy and Pat for long periods. Whatever the causes, organic, environmental, or both, it was clear by the time Billy was 2 years old that something was very wrong with him. He had not started to speak. He threw uncontrollable tantrums. He never seemed to sleep. Pat and her husband took the child from one psychiatrist or neurologist to another. All gave the same analysis: Billy was retarded. And that is a diagnosis and the language used at that time. Before long, however, Pat realized that Billy was diabolically clever and hell-bent on destroying her. Whenever her husband was home, Billy was a model youngster. He knew that his father would punish him quickly and dispassionately for misbehaving. But when his father left the house, Billy would go into the windows and watch until the car pulled out. As soon as it did, he was suddenly transformed. It was like living with the devil, Pat remembers. He'd go into my closet, tear up my evening dresses, and urinate on my clothes. He'd smash furniture and run around biting the walls until the house was destruction from one end to the other. He knew that I liked to dress him in the nicer clothes, so he used to rip the buttons off his shirts and used to get in his pants. I guess the buttons on his pants. When he got violent, Pat punished him, but she got terribly distraught, and for Billy, the pleasure of seeing her upset made any punishment worthwhile. They are really, wow. Sometimes he attacked her with all the fury in his small body, one going for her throat with his teeth, anything that wasn't nailed down or locked up, soap, powder, breakfast food, he strewed all over the floors. Then, laughing wildly, he dragged Pat to come see it. She had to face her problems alone. It was impossible for her to keep any household help. Once Billy tripped a maid at the head of the stairs and then lay on the floor doubled up with laughter as she tumbled down. And Billy was so cunning that his father didn't know what was going on. Pat would tell me about the things he did while I was away, but I couldn't believe her, he says. As time went on, even his father realized that they had a monster on their hands. Enrolled at school for retarded children, Billy threw the whole institution into an uproar, obsessed with a contain record? I'm not sure obsessed with a certain record. He insisted on playing it over and over for hours. He sent the children in his class into fits of screaming misbehavior. He was just like a stallion in a herd of horses, his mother says. Billy ruled his teacher with his tantrums until a nervous wreck herself, she could no longer stand to have him in the classroom. He became a school dropout at the age of 5, said Pam. I think Pat, said Pat. All right, I'm going to wrap this part up here and we'll go into the next part in the next video. I'm going to take a break. Yeah, all right. See you soon for exploring even more autistic history.